Okay, my friends, this is quite serious, and it is not medical advice in any way whatsoever. It's research. And this is a disaster that is just beginning to unfold. Alarming global cancer surge, 79% rise in cancer cases among people under 50. It used to be you got older, well, you got cancer, but now that's almost 80%. That's huge. And the same thing is happening in autism, and the same thing is happening in virtually all diseases. And the reason is the environment that we are in now has, I believe, caused damage to the microbiome. That's the bacteria that live in you. And I am doing a study right now, and we're trying to get a study going on in Ireland right now about chronic invasive disease. And basically, what I was looking into was autism, because that's something that's particularly not understood, and it appears to have a root cause, which all diseases do. In my opinion, all chronic invasive diseases are invasion of the membranes that coat and protect. That's all it is. The membranes on everything. You have membranes even on your blood cells. And if the bacteria and the enzymes are not there to react to the invaders, or to break down the toxins, or to break down the food, or to do all the conversions, the amount of action that an enzyme does is staggering. And the only way you get the enzyme is a bacteria. And our bacteria is under assault. This is not something that isn't understood now. It's just that they're sort of muddling around with it at the moment. But we're going to be this is what I was looking at right now, is methylation. All right, you people don't know what's methylation. Nobody knows what it is. Nobody even talks about it ever. Well, it's like a turn on and off switch. It's just an on and off switch for gene expression. They've always said, well, you guys got a bad gene. Well, what does that mean? His gene is broken? His gene isn't there? No. Most cases, it means it's not turned on. That's what methylation is. You don't just turn them on and let everything go. If you need it, you turn it on. If you don't need it, you turn it off. That's what methylation is in the landscape of the human brain. That's why the human brain has so much electricity running through it. It has to be so well protected from these little. They're electrical signals. There's no other way to present it. It's impossible to see it in any other light. These are magnetic little signals that are running through these little tiny fibers, and you need to have those coated by certain types of fabrics, basically, and I think they call them glial cells. We'll look into that. But my point being here is that all chronic invasion is related to bacteria, because bacteria is related to enzymes, and enzymes are the things that do the job. They're the most exotic chemistry that's known to mankind. And they have been discovered now that fecal matter transplants are very effective at most every disease, because virtually every disease appears to be related to these enzymes. The enzymes they do more work in a fraction of a second than would happen in 100 years. And I'm not kidding you, literally. They do hundreds of millions of interactions just like that. And that's using only one single enzyme. And it doesn't even get used up. It's called click chemistry. It's like an executioner. It comes up and goes, bam! And the whole tumor, thousands of cells will just die instantaneously, or they'll be broken apart. They'll be magnetically changed. And that's what every single particle there is, every molecule, is nothing more than an interaction of magnetic polarities. And if you come up and shock that thing, they all go. They all die. Or they all do whatever they're supposed to do based on the architecture of the enzyme. That's why they're so critical. Well, yeah, I'm seeing this every day now. You know, they're coming out. They realize we got a serious problem with health, a serious problem. It's getting worse and worse, and they just don't understand it. Every article says it's not well understood. We just don't understand this. And you have to understand, first of all, chemistry. And that's not understood well either, because they think all of these are big chunks. They're not. There's thousands of particles in between every one of these. Thousands. And that's what the click chemistry works on. It works on what they call half-lives. We only see them to have little half-lives that last a long time. Even nanoseconds is a long time in this realm. A nanosecond is a billionth of a second. When these enzymes hit, they go, and it's done in billions of a second. And it's all done through this whole set of chemistry. One single enzyme, and then the enzyme doesn't even get used up. It just went up and it goes down and blip, 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 until everything's done that it has to wipe out, and then it just, I don't know, I believe they must go into the lymph system somewhere. They just get washed out of your body. But when they're necessary, they are necessary in unbelievably necessary. So that's where we're starting with, is bacteria and enzymes. And then I'm going to show you what the different fabrics and so forth that coat the organs in your body. They all have different chemistry. That's the key. They all have a different chemistry. That's why there's thousands and thousands and thousands of different bacteria in your body if you are healthy. All right, taking antibiotics kills lots of those thousands and thousands of them. And then if you don't have those ones that are necessary to make the enzyme you need to do the job you need, you're done. So what we need to do is a study on the bacterial, you know, what lives in the body, in a healthy body versus a non-healthy body. That's why we need a database. That's what we're trying to get going on in Belfast. And I have a very, very strong-willed partner over there that's doing a fabulous job, and her son had autism, and I imagine it doesn't just go away completely, but he's vastly improved by her diligent work. She went to Harvard, you know, online for the microbiome, and primarily the ribosome area where it creates these enzymes. And they send them out through your body. And I'll show you all this in the anatomical. But my point being is, we need to really start looking at this in a whole new way. And then create the database. And it's not going to be hard to do. And then we'll know which bacteria is missing, what that type of bacteria causes. But there's a ton of them. But I also have another friend, Mandy, who is a triple PhD bacteriological engineer. He knows all about this stuff. So, I mean, we've got the people that are doing the job, or that can do the job. We just need whatever else it takes. And I don't have whatever else it takes. I can point to this and that. I've done a lot of research. I understand this stuff pretty well. So I can help, but I have no way to interact with, like Marguerite is going to the people of the parliament over there. She's going to the people that make the decisions, how they treat their population as far as, you know, health-wise goes, because they have a terrible problem in Belfast. As everybody does now. Autism is just skyrocketing. Everything is. It's because the bacteria is not present in the body. Why isn't there? I have all kinds of ideas to present. A lot of it has to do with things that people don't want to know about. Because, you know, like this genetically modified foods now, that they give them genetic modifications so that food itself can take in poisons and not die. But you're going to eat that food. These are things we need to look at. Natural grown versus these modified foods. If they're bad, they're bad. I don't care how much money you make on them. If they're killing people, they're no freaking good. All right, so that's the approach I'm going to take. I pull no punches. If I see a problem, I point that problem out. Okay, my friends, I was just about to do a presentation on how the microbiome affects basically autism, but all diseases, including cancer, because virtually all diseases that are chronic are an invasion of a membrane. And the membranes are only protected if they have the correct bacteria, which has the correct enzymes. Now, I was stunned to see this morning. Remember that name, microglial cells. It says, while the organoids, which they created fake brains, these organoids contain several tissue types that make up our brain. So they're looking at these tissue types to see what causes autism. I don't know how they're trying to figure this out by creating fake brains. But while the organoids contain several types of tissues that make up our brains, the models lacked common brain tissue like microglial cells. That's the most important thing in your brain. That's the most important thing. So I guess it remains incomplete, but we'll do it anyway. This is what they, look at this. Artificial brain reveals the genetic origins of autism spectrum DR. No, it doesn't. They have no clue unless they have the microglial cells. Let's look at what those are. Those are the protectors of the brain. No, here's Harvard. Microglial, the protectors of the brain. Well, why are they protecting the brain? Because they're loaded with enzymes. This shows what they're doing. You got a blood-brain barrier to try to keep out bad stuff. But you also have enzymes. Microglial cells also help clean up protein aggregates, junk that's in your brain. Clumps of abnormally shaped protein accumulate and are associated with neurodegenerative diseases such as Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, all of that stuff. And it's all due to the enzymes. The enzymes exist in these microglial cells. All right, so we're talking about these microglial cells, and these are the ones that are in your brain. Listen to this. Something like 10% of your brain. Here it is right here. Lastly, the smallest type of glial cell is known as microglial, which has begun to draw more attention in recent years. Although microglia only make up about 10% of the brain cells, their inconspicuous member of our brain work to create a stable environment, keeping our brain clean and healthy. Well, how do they do that? Allowing neurons to perform their vital, important functions, so that the neurons are not being invaded. Microglia are so critical for the maintenance of neuronal function, scientists naturally ask the question, how do microglia perform such an important job? What happens if they go rogue? What if they're not there? Now, let's see what these do. What is the microglia? They're saturated with enzymes. That's why they're doing their job. All right, just follow me through on this. Very, very simple. Recent studies are showing gene expression. That means it's turned on or it's turned off. And the profile of phenotype of microglial cells across the brain regions at different age and disease states. They're turning them on and off. That's what methylation is. And this is in the landscape of the human brain. Well, what does the methylation and what happens there? It's all done by enzymes. All right, this is a little bit technical, but it's not bad. This is microglial methylation, which is on the landscape of your human brain. How does the human brain work? And what is it? Why is this necessary? And what causes the methylation? Methylation is just a switch that turns it on and off. Well, let's look a little deeper, okay? Because this is all recent studies in gene expression. That's what we're talking about, gene expression. That means it's turned on or it's turned off. That's as simple as that. All right, remember enzymes. Enzymes, enzymes, enzymes. Without the bacteria, you have no enzymes. Now, where those bacteria live, I don't know, because the brain is a sequestered area. It has what they call a blood-brain barrier, which does not allow big molecules in and so forth. So enzymes are very tiny molecules, but they are very powerful. And they are used to do the methyltransferase, are enzymes that transfer a methyl group, which is a switch, on and off switch, to the substrate. It says you're on or you're off, case closed. And that's by adding, DNA methyltransferase modification, adding a methyl group to a cytosine. It's an on-off switch. Now here it is right here. Methyltransferases function the same way in the body as a light switch. It turns the gene on or turns it off. they add a methyl group to a molecule to activate or deactivate its function. It's on or it's off. Now, if you don't have the enzyme, you can't turn it on. It's just like having nobody go turn the switch on. There's nobody there. So if you don't have, first of all, the bacteria to create the enzyme, and then the enzyme in the right place to turn the switch on and off, I don't care how good your genes are, it's not going to work. Okay, I don't know if I've already made this point, but I certainly will, that literally our entire immune system is in a layer called the interstitium, where the bacteria live. And they create enzymes that do the work to turn on and off all of the different responses that we need to control invading things and to break down food for our health, to process products and create products. Your body breaks things down and builds it back up again. And you have to have the correct enzymes, which means you have to have the correct bacteria. And the bacteria live primarily in the lining of the gut, but they're everywhere. Now they're found out they don't just live there, they live in this interstitium layer. Okay, this is a new organ system, they claim. From 2018, they realized you got a fluid-filled highway, and it is undercoated by a whole bunch of immune cells that house the bacteria which create the enzymes. If any of that stuff dies down in there, you can't create the enzyme. You don't have the enzyme, you can't break down the food, so you don't digest properly. You have all kinds of gas and diarrhea and Chrons disease and irritable bowel syndrome because you can't break down the food. Secondly, if you get attacked through that layer by something that wants to eat up your good flesh down here, and you can't respond with an enzyme or a bacteria to kill it, well, and it comes, and that's called cancer. Okay, this is from Johns Hopkins, and this is Faiza Shakib, MD, PhD, assistant professor oncology down at Johns Hopkins. Now, I went there for genomics, so I understand the genome, and I understand how gene sequences work, and I understand methylation and all that stuff, and enzymes, and I'm not sure they still do. They say expanding the scope of new clinical trials is one approach to speed the development of improved insights, ultimately tools to prevent, diagnosis, and treat cancer. Well, I say all invasive diseases have the same mechanism. It's penetration through the membrane because it can't protect itself. Now, bacterial function is an area on which could be more focus. Metabolites offer an opportunity to focus on the output of an entire bacterial community, and then they want to identify redundancies might be present between different bacteria, might do the same thing. Bacteria are very specific. They create specific enzymes. It says that has really been inconsistent across a lot of current studies. They really haven't studied it at all. What they need is future studies should focus on collecting clinical data, yes, including dietary medication exposure as key modulators of the microbiome. Yes, but those medications primarily are antibiotics and things that destroy your microbiome. Once you kill the bacteria, it's tough to reestablish it. All right, this is cancer immunotherapy, how to make yourself immune. They're talking about fecal microbiota transplants brings light to this, and it appears to be very, very effective in most cases, in almost all invasive diseases. And it's because you're keeping the things from breaking through these walls, basically. Okay, this goes on through a whole very, very long. But at the end, this is the safety of these fecal matter transplants should be the primary consideration in clinical decision making. It's necessary to conduct more clinical studies in order to ensure its safety and efficacy. And then they say, we look forward to the wide application of FMT in clinical practice in the future to benefit more patients with malignant tumors. Again, I say every invasive disease, which includes virtually everything, is because of non-effective enzymes. So that means the bacteria are not there. So that means if you can get these bacteria, this is a bacterial transplant. That's FMT means you're getting new bacteria in you. And if it takes hold and it grows in there because it'll keep growing and just staying in there and keep protecting you forever. Once you get it to stick, that's the key, getting it to stick. All right, the FDA did approve the fecal matter transplant for CDI, Clostridium difficile, which is very deadly. Right? You can die from that, and but the only thing that seems to do the job correctly is this replacement of bacteria. And then you can fend off this invasion to your intestines, basically. All right, enzymes are not alive. They're very complex chemicals produced by bacteria. That's the only place you get them from. They cannot reproduce. Enzymes can't reproduce by themselves, and they cannot actually consume waste. They can break them down. They speed up the chemical reaction without getting used themselves. And I mean way speed it up. Bacteria are the factories that produce enzymes. You don't have the bacteria, you're not going to get the enzyme. You don't have the enzyme, you're not going to get the reaction. You're going to be unwell. This is how exotic these enzymes are. Enzymes accelerate the rates of reactions by well over 1,000,000-fold. So reactions that would take years to happen without these catalysts can happen in fractions of a second if catalyzed by the appropriate enzyme. Now let's look at that bacteria and enzyme and tumors. All right, that's a bacteria. It's just one cell. It's a single cell. Most of them have a little flagellum that can make them propel zip through that fluid-filled highway. These little blue balls are the ribosomes. The ribosomes contain the enzyme. They squirt them out when they need to. It has its own DNA, and that DNA tells this exact species of bacteria what is in this ribosome. And what's in that ribosome is the most exotic chemistry you can imagine. You see this? I'm going to show you this and then show you how this all happens. These are those little ribosomes. They come out and then they unsheath. They're in a little plastic bubble, a capsid. When they come out, then they turn into an enzyme or a protein, basically the same thing. Because an enzyme is just a very exotic chemical, and the protein is not quite as exotic, but it's pretty damn exotic. All right, remember this. This is what the enzymes are, and the proteins. And they are going to be exactly identical to this 100% of the time, or it's not going to work. It's called denatured. It's broken. It won't work. Every one of these has a magnetic signature, just like this little bunch of magnetic balls. Because that's all they are. It's exactly what they are. And here's what they look like in actuality. That's what an enzyme looks like. And I'm talking every one of these has to be exactly where it is. Every single one of them. That's why they're so exotic and they do so much chemistry instantaneously. This bumps up against some other living thing that's in your body. And if it senses the right attachments to all of these little spots, and I don't know how many you need, but there's going to be a lot of them that have to interact from this into this, and beep, done. This is all dead. Everything that was attached to this. One single magnetic pulse from this. I don't know if it sends out magnetism or it sucks particles in or what it does, but it denatures the life of whatever this thing is that's in you trying to kill you. So if you don't have the right enzymes, you're done. If you don't have the right bacteria, you don't have an enzyme at all. This is what constitutes cancer. And really all invasions, because this is a membrane. This whole thing should be a membrane. Down here is that area, the interstitium, where they have the fluid-filled highway. This thing just popped right through because nobody was stopping it. It gets down into here where all your good stuff is so they can live on it, and it just keeps growing, and that becomes a tumor. It just keeps growing and growing and growing, but it should have never got through there. Now, if you can get some bacteria or some enzymes out here, you probably can kill the damn thing and repair that breach in the interstitium. All right, now what you got to understand is that every single membrane in your body has a certain specific chemistry. This is bone cancer. And the membrane has allowed these crystals to form into the bone, or the bone to send out the crystals. Whatever it is, it's an invasion of this membrane layer. So whatever was supposed to be living in that membrane was not there, and chemistry took over. Now, if this was a kidney or a lung or a heart or a pancreas or whatever, it's going to have different chemistry. Bones have a lot of calcium. The other things have a lot of metals and other types of toxins. So you're going to have this very, very specific molecule. This protects you from this invasion. And it won't be like that. It might be like this to protect you from cancer of the pancreas or whatever it is. They all have their own specific enzymes. And the enzymes are the key. And I think they understand that now. So how do we go about determining who's going to get sick and what healthy and what not healthy? We have to create a database. That's what I'm working with Marguerite right now. And I'm hoping the people in Belfast will pay attention to this and be the leaders in the world on this, because I can't find anybody that will stand up. It's all the doctors have so much control over this, and they don't seem to be interested in some things that seem to be pretty obvious to me. They're starting to look into it, but every time I see something, more study, my wife has some issues, and they said, oh, it's not ready for prime time yet. It's always some little thing. They're either afraid to stand up, or they just don't want to, or just too much trouble. I don't know. But that's what I'm finding. Now, maybe Belfast will be different. You see, this is the CDC announced another increase in the prevalence of autism. A pair of new reports, one focused on 8 and then another on 4-year-olds. They found that 1 out of every 36 children has autism. Significant increase from 2021, where it was 1 in 44, and from 2006, it was 1 in 110. And then they're just saying, but guess what? It's just because we can figure it out better now. We know they got autism. No, that's not the case. When I was a kid, I didn't see anybody had autism, basically. I mean, nobody I saw. Now, the ones that have autism, I'm talking about ones that they're nonverbal. They don't even talk. They have such a severe life affecting symptoms that this is not just wow, look at him, yeah, we never knew he had autism before. No, the guy's just bouncing off the walls, he can't speak. Let's look at that. And we need to find out what bacteria is living in that kid or that person. I don't care how old they are. And at certain ages, you're going to have different bacteria. I'm sure of that, because when they're an infant, a very, very young infant, there is very little natural immunities, which means there's very little bacteria in you creating enzymes. But there's going to be some. But then when you get certain types of medical intervention, I think it damages the immune system and the bacteria. So here's what we need to do is take fecal swabs just to see what's in there and run them through some kind of a process that can give us a complete printout of quantities and types of complete printout, so we know exactly what's in that kid, and then match it to a database and just keep adding and adding and adding. It doesn't have to have names or anything. You could just say this guy's got all kinds of different diseases, and here's his profile, and this kid's perfectly healthy, and here's his profile. And you build enough of those, you're going to see everybody that's got some kind of autism is missing this or this or that, or has too much of this or that. What we need to do is get a database, and that's what I'm asking for Marguerite, to try to get her government over there to do this. We're not talking about a lot of money, I don't think. It just is a lot of resolve. So let me go a little deeper with this and show you some of the other things that I've turned up. And you may not want to stick around for this, but I'm going to tell you right now, as far as I can see, they need to focus in on enzymes, which means bacteria, which means basically what comes out of your butt, because that's where the bacteria ends up going, and that's how they find out what is living in your microbiome. Because people have diarrhea, they have constipation, they have all kinds of problems with gas and bloating and acid reflux, and all those things are symptoms of not having the right enzymatic breakdown of the foods and not being able to respond to the things that are trying to invade you. And we're ingesting all kinds of toxins. The water's dirty, the food, I have a lot of issues about these genetically modified foods. you know, these are the kind of thing we need to test.
Roger.
And we can.
Roger.
This just came in a second ago from Dion Errico Viglione. Endangered species feces could help fight against diabetic ulcers. Well, not only that, they're using it for combating foot diseases. Look, researchers discovered naturally occurring viruses. Viruses are exactly enzymes. There's no difference whatsoever. Viruses are not alive and do extreme chemistry we always considered was bad, but enzymes are not alive and do extreme chemistry we always considered good. They are the same thing. So it is in their poo just like it is in ours. The bacteria is in there. And these viruses, these enzymes, known as bacteriophages, and they kill the bacteria species that are invading people's feet. They're resistant to antibiotics, so you can't kill them, and they cause a foot ulcer that results in 7,000 amputations a year. All right, they kill the bacteria species that you can't kill them with antibiotics; they won't die. But these things go in and kill them because that's their natural enemy. All right, that's what bacteria does. It creates these, and they're a bacteriophage. And a bacteriophage is this right here. This phage is also known as bacteriophage. It's a type of virus. It's an enzyme. It infects bacteria. It goes and kills another bacteria, just as your enzymes do to protect us in that interstitium layer. All right, they replicate within bacteria, just as ours do too. Phages are not living organisms, and neither are enzymes. Same thing. They cannot reproduce, and they're grouped in with other prions, they call them. But anyway, that's it for this. It's amazing. They're really starting to see, but they don't understand, or I don't know what the deal is. But it's a very, very, very slow process. And there's a lot of people that have to be involved, and there's a lot of, you know, it's intrusive to their way of life having somebody from the outside come in and say something. They want to have it in-house, and that's fine. All I'm doing is pointing out things that they already know. So that somebody's got to organize this and get it done. I'm hoping my friend over there in Belfast will get some database going, and then everybody will crowd around them. Ireland will be the one that stepped up. That's the way I see it, because I don't see anybody else is looking to make any big difference here. And this would be a huge difference if this works, and the database proves to be what I expect it to be. And if we can get these new bacteria living in people that are deficient from them or have excess amounts, you could use antibiotics. If you have tons of some terrible bad bacteria you can't get rid of, yes. But then you have to replace it with all good bacteria again. That's okay. I'm not against that. And that's what they're doing right now, I believe, with the Clostridium difficile. They give you the heavy-duty antibiotics, and then they completely replace your microbiome. And if that's the case, I'm good with that. It seems to be working, too. So I think a lot more importance should be put on this, because it would reduce the cost of medical care. And it doesn't affect just one person getting sick. It's a whole family. It's a whole community. And they actually do say that there are communities that have different diseases, and they can't understand why it's in this one area. Well, it could be the water. It could be the air. It could be just common contact in the area, but it's going to relate down to some excess bacteria or some missing bacteria. Something in that, because that's the only thing that does any chemistry in your body is enzymes. That's the only thing that does anything. If you don't have the enzymes, that's why people they eat and it comes just out like they ate it, because nothing's being broken down. They don't have the enzymes, the catalysts. They do so much work instantly, it's just phenomenal. Anyway, I know this has been dragged out long, but it's important. Somebody hopefully will take a look at this, but I don't think there's probably too many people with me now. It's kind of overwhelming, but it's a good healthcare provider will see some goodness in this, I hope. All right, I love you all. Bye.